right angle? What are angles? No one knows. Hey guys, it's Casey, and today we're going to talk about my February TBR. So starting at the beginning of this year, I decided that I was going to do a little TBR game. So what I did was I came up with a list of 100 different prompts that give me like kind of ideas of some books that I should put on my TBR. And so what I do is I film myself rolling 2 dice, one for the tens place and one for the ones place, and that picks out the prompt that I have to pick a book for that month. So as of right now, my plan is to roll 6 times per month because that should get me about to my Goodreads goal, which is 75, and then if I have more time, I can read more things throughout the month if I want to. So let's go ahead and check back in with January's TBR, and I crushed January's TBR. I'm filming this with about a week left in the month, and I have already finished all 6 books and I'm just moving on to stuff that I kind of just want to read now. So far so good with the TBR dice, so let's see how February goes. Okay, let's go ahead and do roll number 1. 21. So for the first roll, I got 21, which is Mom Chooses. So for this, my mom, who declined to appear in this video, got to pick out the book that I had to read for this month. So when I called her and talked to her about it, I told her to pick one that she really enjoyed or that she really wanted me to read, and she picked When the Bough Breaks by Jonathan Kellerman. So I don't know a huge amount about this book, obviously, because my mom picked it. It wasn't really on my radar, but I believe it is a psychological thriller. It's definitely like a detective mystery novel that is told from the perspective of a detective or a psychologist, something like that, and he's working to solve the case, and I think it's a missing girl. I also know that this is a long series. I looked this up. I think it has like over 20, maybe over 30 books in this series. It's a lot, but this book was published in the 80s or something like that. But my mom remembers that she really enjoyed it, so I will be reading that this month. Roll number 2. 94. So the next roll, I rolled 94, which is a road trip book. And so for that, I picked A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. So this is a YA historical fiction that follows an unruly boy named Monty as he goes on a road trip with his sister and his best friend. So this is a book I've heard a ton of people talk about and they've really enjoyed it. I've heard people say it's a lot of fun. And I know there are technically a couple of books in this series that follow other side characters, but I know the main draw of this is that it apparently has a really cute romance between Monty and his friend. I also believe that Monty is like a canonically bisexual character, so we love to see it. Roll number 3. 31. Next, I rolled 31, which is a 5-star prediction. So for that, I will be reading The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. So this is a book I have had on my TBR for a long time. I actually got a copy of this book last July and I've been so excited to read it. I'm so sure I'm going to love it, and it's so much so that I am intimidated and I haven't picked it up yet. I'm so worried that this book is somehow going to disappoint me and that I've hyped it up too much. But I think this is the indisputable choice for a 5-star prediction. I haven't made an official 5-star predictions video, but I think I said in my video about fantasy series I wanted to start that if I had made a video like that, this would be pretty much number 1 on that list, so I think that means I have no choice but to read The Lies of Locke Lamora in February, so it's finally happening. So The Lies of Locke Lamora follows our main character Locke, who is the leader of a group of thieves. And he has this reputation for being a Robin Hood type character who steals from the rich to feed the poor, but that is actually not the case. And I don't know a huge amount about the actual plot of this book, I just kind of know that basic premise, and I know that this book ends up being a heist novel, which I always enjoy, and I love a lovable rogue character, so this one is definitely a 5-star prediction, and I'm excited that the dice have forced me to finally read something that I'm fairly certain I'm going to love. Roll number 4. 27. Roll number 4 was 27, which is a reread, and I was stuck on what to pick for this for a while. I was going back and forth between 2 books, and I still can't really pick, but those 2 books are basically my top 2 favorite books of all time, and that is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, or The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. So I've reread Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy several times at this point, but it has been a couple of years since I read it, and it's shorter, so that is one of the reasons I want to pick it. But I think for my official TBR, I'm going to pick The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet because it will be about a year since I read it for the first time. I read it at the end of February, I think maybe beginning of March of last year. But I also really want to continue on with the series because I have the next two, and there's a fourth one in the Wayfarers coming out this year. But since it's been a year, I want to kind of refresh my memory. Granted, I still don't remember a lot of what happens in this book because it hasn't been that long, but it would be nice to kind of reread this because I loved it so much and to kind of maybe propel me and give me the energy to actually finish out the series. So I think this is going to be the one officially on my TBR, and I might also reread this if I get a chance. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet follows our main character Rosemary Harper as she joins the crew of the Wayfarer. Now the Wayfarer is a tunneling ship, so it creates these wormholes in these tunnels throughout space, and so this follows the crew of the Wayfarer as they get their most lucrative job yet, and it is essentially a long-haul mission. So this book is a very character-driven sci-fi that looks at all of these characters' lives as we're going to this job, and it follows different snapshots and points in time as they're interacting with each other and grappling with bigger moral questions and their relationships with each other and events that happen along the way. And I absolutely adored this book. After I finished it, I gave it 5 stars and I called it my new favorite book of all time, dethroning Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I'm gonna read this and make sure that's still the case. So I will be rereading this in the month of February, hopefully giving me the energy to actually continue on with the series.
Roll number 5. $84.
Roll number 5 was 84, which is a very hyped book, and so for that, I'm picking Vicious by V.E. Schwab. So this is one of the first books that really interested me that I started hearing about when I started watching BookTube. And this is something that a ton of people have read, and it's one of the first V.E. Schwab books that really came on my radar. Out of most of the books I own, this is the one that most people I follow have read, pretty much. And most of the ratings are very, very high for this, so I would say that this qualifies as an extremely hyped book. So this book follows 2 people who used to be best friends, Victor and Eli, and the book starts with one of them getting out of jail and kind of flashes back and talks about the situations that led up to this point. And essentially, Victor and Eli used to be roommates in grad school and were working on a thesis project together to find individuals with superhuman abilities. And they discovered that by putting people in near-death situations, they can kind of evoke some of these abilities. And so this is the first book in a duology, and I know it essentially follows them as they become corrupted and become villains, and I very much am excited to read this. But after looking through my shelves for a while, I would say this is one of the most hyped books on my shelves, and it's the one I'm picking for February.
And the last roll, roll number 6. $29.
And then my last roll was 29, which is first person narrative. So when trying to pick a book for this, I literally sat in front of my shelves and just pulled down books for about 30 minutes flipping through pages to try to figure out what was in first person narrative, only to discover that there weren't very many on my shelves, or they weren't things I wanted to read this month. So I took a step back and I thought about it, and I thought about the things I wanted to read and went from there. And then I realized the Dresden Files are first person, so we're good. So for this prompt, I'm going to be picking Skin Game by Jim Butcher. So Skin Game is the 15th book to the Dresden Files. So broadly speaking, the Dresden Files are about wizard for hire Harry Dresden, who works with the Chicago Police Department as a private investigator to investigate all manner of crimes that are perpetrated by a supernatural entity or have a supernatural component. And the series starts off very much as like this detective noir mystery of the week style story, and then gradually expands into so much more. So at this point, book 15, the story is kind of completely different, but I obviously can't explain it because there are 15 books leading up to this. But I am rapidly catching up with the books. There are only 2 more published books after Skin Game, so we're almost there. But yes, Skin Game is what I will be reading for my last prompt in the month of February. So those are all the books on my official TBR. Now, there is another book that I would like to get read this month, but it is not on my TBR officially in any capacity, and that is The Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. I would like to finish out the Live Ship Traders series because where the Mad Ship left off, it was incredible and amazing, and I have to know how this series is going to finish. But this book is huge, and for it not being on my official TBR, I'm a little hesitant to say that I'm actually going to get to this month. But if I end up having spare time, I might try to fit this in. But I think that's all I've got for you guys today. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading, I have a link to my Goodreads down in the description below. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time.